Hello, class. I trust that everything is going well and that you guys continue to enjoy the course as you move forward. This week we're going to look at two very important component or three very important component of the market, but we're going to discuss two. And so we're going to look at the consumer market and we're going to look at the business market. We're going to look at the size of this market, the behavior of this market, the importance of this market. So the outline today is definition of consumer purchase, which is B2C, business to consumer. Definition of business purchase or business market, which is B2B, as some people like to call it. And we're going to look at motivation and influence of consumer purchase and motivation and influence of business purchase. Now, in any country, as you know, we are in a global business environment, and it does not necessarily mean that we're doing, a company is doing business in every country. But let's take it from an international scale. This economy on a global scale is made up of international countries all across the world. And so regardless that you're dealing with the United States, you're dealing with China, you're dealing with a little country in Africa, every market is broken down in three segments. Every country has this three segments, and every purchase that occurs in one out of the three, two out of the three, or all three segments. So the segments are consumer markets, business markets, and government market. We're not going to discuss the government market. We're going to spend a little bit more time discussing the consumer market and also the business market. Okay, so the reason is, why are we spending time discussing the consumer market and the business market? Because these two markets, although separated, yet they are connected together. And as you study your book moving forward, and as you spend more time in this course, you would discover that the consumer market is the most valuable and important market on planet Earth. It is not the government market, and it's not the business market. And yes, one may argue and say, okay, the government market is the largest by transaction. Yes, it is the largest by transaction because of national defense, because of military budget, and so forth. And one may say that the business market, they're the ones that produces products. That's correct. But what happens if you don't have consumption of products? What happens with the business market? The business market will stop produce. And so consumption of product, meaning to say utilizing these products to get its full economic value out of it, that's where the consumer market comes in. So by definition, how would you describe consumer? And so by definition, here's a very simplistic definition that is easy to remember. Consumers are individuals and households that buy goods for personal, non-business use. So the key word there is personal, non-business use, 100%. This is at the point of purchase. This is the intention of the purchase. This is the intention of the usage. And so that's consumer purchase. Why is that important? Because the motivation to purchase is different quite a bit, and not all is based on economics. And so we're going to look at later on, as we look at consumer, we're going to look at some of the motivation why products are purchased. And just to give you a hint, think about grocery products, and then think about luxury products, and then think about affordable luxuries, and then think about premium luxury. Who in their right mind would spend $1.8 million to buy a Rolex watch? Because they need time to know time, right? So they can't be late for lunch. That's a premium luxury product. So the next definition we're going to look at are business buyers. So who are business buyers? Business buyers are part of that supply chain, obviously, that brings product from point of origin, raw material, into farm utility, packaged goods ready to be used. And business buyers are defined as individuals or companies that purchase goods and services for business, non-personal use. These are not personal use. These are for business purposes only. So here's an example. What happens if you're working for a company and they do supply coffee? Is that personal use or is that business use? Obviously, it is for employees, but then it's part of the business atmosphere, it's part of the business offering to their employees. Although you're not selling that coffee back to consumer, you're consuming it there. It's a way to get their employee to be a bit more productive and so forth. Okay. Now, here's the challenge. The challenge is to understand consumer from a behavioral perspective, how decisions are made. And the next big challenge is to understand business from a behavioral perspective, how decisions are made. So let's take the easy one first. The easy one first is business. Business decisions are made by one guideline only, and the guideline is economics. It has to do with the money. And it's not just cheapness of price, but it's also how money is used in order to bring products that would produce greater returns. So again, it's not the cheapness of price, but the amount of returns that they will get from that product. So you would see companies that would only bring luxury products. And you know those are luxury products, you know, Louis Vuitton, Coach. We just mentioned earlier about Rolex watch. Those are all luxury products. Those are not products that are considered to be economic-based products. They are products that are considered to be based they're status-oriented, they're image-oriented products. And quite obviously, companies look at those products in terms of, again, from a business perspective. A lot of expensive material, expensive labor, expensive workmanship goes into the product, but it's the return on investment. Now, on the other side of the coin, you have mass merchandisers like Target and like Walmart. These mass merchandisers, they look at price because they're not dealing with luxury products. They're dealing with everyday economy-based products. And so mass merchandisers choose to have a lot of products, and they want to move products out in large quantities and just make small profit. So business only look at one thing, return on investment from an economic perspective, and not just many different components. Now, from a consumer perspective, consumer looks at things in many different ways, okay? They may look at it from a cultural perspective. For instance, you and I are probably from different culture. I am from a different culture. So in spite of the fact that I live in America a long time, I still miss my home food. And so those tastes that was acquired from a child, those tastes does not disappear quite frequently. And as you know, food is something we eat quite often. And so that's a lot of money. And so you look at culture, you look at economics, you look at personal reasons, you look at the life cycle of an individual. Where are they at that point in time? So we are going to look at consumer first and some of the influences. As I mentioned, there are several. And so it's not just price and it's not just quality of products. I did mention to you culture, social, personal, and psychological. So let's look at social, okay? Why would someone spend a lot of money and buy expensive products? For who? Most times you would hear people say they buy for themselves. So here's a question to you. Do you think that these folks will wake up on a Sunday morning, get showered, put on their fancy clothes, their fancy shoe, their fancy watch, and just walk around the house and look at the mirror and say, damn, I look beautiful today? Or did they buy those things to impress people that their mommy told them when they were a kid not to speak to? They're known as strangers. That's how we are. The world outside influences sometimes how we spend money. Fashion is, we spend a lot of money on luxury and on fashion just to impress people outside, external to us, people that we don't know. And so that's the social aspect of our purchase. It has nothing to do with economics. It has to do with image. It has to do with status. It has to do with recognition. So whether it's at your place of work, or whether it's within your friends, or whether you are in public, a lot of times we spend money based on those things. So if you look at the economics of it, does it make sense? Probably from an economic sense, the answer is no. But from a social sense, the answer is yes. Because, you know, in this world, it is often said it's not just what you know, but it's also who you know. And it's not just your set of knowledge, it's also your network. Do you have a strong network? Do you have a big network? Are you part of that social system? And so a lot of times, yes, we have to adapt it. It's we can't do anything about it, okay? The other part that we're looking at also is personal factors. Personal factors has to do with your personal economics. How do you spend money? How do you save money? How do you invest money? Do you spend every penny that you make? Do you save some, and so forth. These are tough decisions, but these are necessary decisions, and it dictates how we spend money. So your economic situation. Now, you and I will discover that we always would like to make a little bit more. And so why would we like to make a little bit more? Because we want to buy a little bit more things. And so a lot of times we look at two very important components of our personal life. Number one, the quality of living, the standard of living, and also the quality of life. Standard of living is measured by materialism, the things that we own, the things that we have, the things that are visible that we present to the world. And then we have quality of life. Quality of life is measured by your health. You spend a lot of money probably go to the gym to work out. You're very careful into what you eat and where you buy your food. And if you would notice now, a lot of folks are spending money at Whole Foods, and Whole Foods is quite expensive. But yet to them, that's they're getting an improved quality of life there. So personal factors has a lot to do also with the condition of your life cycle, your age. Are you single? Are you married? Do you have kids? Are your kids ready for college? Are you in that mid-year? Are you in that final year? Are you looking at retirement? Are you looking at vacation? Are you looking at many different things of life? Third is that psychological factors. Number one, motivation, interest at a point in time. We have different interests at different point in time in our lives, and a lot of times we'll spend money based on those interests. Some folks are very fashionable. They want to be in the latest fashion. Some folks, and these are folks that are known as innovators. Innovators are individuals who are going to spend money on the latest fashion, who are going to spend money on the latest consumer electronics, who wants to go to international countries on vacation. And so those are things that are important to them. And so they will spend money on that. And so if you look at the cruise lines, those cruise ships, who are they targeting? And you would discover they're targeting individuals who has a certain percentage of money, who look for a vacation outside of their normal environment and just want to have a good time and so forth. The other factors that we look at here is education, believe it or not. As you increase your knowledge, you will improve your standard of living. That's the hope and that's the plan. And you and I also would look at different circles of people, and a lot will change. Now, I don't know if you guys remember in your undergrad, a gentleman by the name of Abraham Maslow. Maslow is the individual who came up with the hierarchy of needs. Now, what has happened over time, Maslow model continues to live on. Maslow model is mentioned in every psychology book and is mentioned in every consumer behavior book and every marketing book that has a section on consumer behavior. Why is that? Because Maslow hierarchy of needs and his research and his information is considered to be the most representative of human behavior. So here is something that marketing people need to understand what Maslow came up with, okay? Number one, if you look at this model very carefully, Maslow described his model as hierarchy of needs. If you look in your book, you would see two words, needs and wants of consumer. But Maslow does not deal with wants. What does that mean now? Okay, does it mean that wants does not exist? Now, from a marketing perspective, if you look at the word want, it has to do with the strength and intensity of a desire. All right, they're basic necessity food, products that we need. If we don't consume those products or we don't have those products, which is food, shelter, and obviously clothing, then there are consequences in life. Those are basic necessity. But beyond that, do we still have needs? And so Maslow said we have needs. You have your physiological needs, you have your safety needs, you have your belonging needs, you have your self-esteem needs, and also you have self-actualization. But if you look at Maslow's need, it is in a triangle. And what does a triangle mean? Is that as it goes upwards, it decreases in size to arrive at a peak. So the lines on that triangle represents now income. If you have more income, yes, you can go beyond basic necessity and so forth. But there are people in this world that are, poverty stricken. They can only produce enough money to buy food and a little bit of clothes, and they can't think about a luxury car, they can't think about a vacation, and they are right there at the physiological need. But is that the representation of people on a general scale? The other thing that we need to look at that Maslow hierarchy of needs is an interpretation of the human person by looking at his needs. Maslow is telling us that the human person will never ever be permanently satisfied in their entire life. So what is he saying? He's saying that satisfaction is short-term based and temporary based on one's income, one's life cycle, and one's status in life. And so once a segment of Maslow is satisfied, then we move to the next segment. But here's the thing that we need to understand from Maslow. We are not replacing, we are adding. Because you can't replace groceries, right? Physiological needs stays there. And then as we get more money or as we move into a different cycle of life, then we move up to another need while we have to take care of that need and so forth. So Maslow is telling us that the average person will never ever be permanently satisfied in life. Now here's the question, is that a good scenario for marketing people? What happens if your customer buys your product once and they're permanently satisfied? That means they're not coming back. What happens if they buy your product and they are temporarily satisfied? That means they have to come back. Now, it doesn't mean they have to come back, but it means that they have to buy that product again to satisfy that need as it comes to the surface. And that's where your opportunity and my opportunity comes in. But we know they're going to buy again. So we have to build that relationship and maintain strength in that relationship. So a lot of times you would see that there's something that is known as product obsolescence, forced purchase. Meaning to say that company now will build shelf life into their product, expired by date so and so, so we have to replace. Or new consumer electronics replacing a reasonably good product, but because, again, they want to generate revenue dollars and so forth. Why is that? They understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They understand that a human person will never be permanently satisfied. That's a good thing for marketing people. The other thing that Maslow is telling us here is that the additional components, as new things comes into the marketplace, we are not going to only think economics. We are going to think lifestyle based. We're going to think through the social system based. And you guys are saying, we're living in a marketplace now, a lot of consumer electronics, a lot of fashions, a lot of premium luxury products. And in spite of the fact that payroll is not going up as much as it should, yet we're finding ways and means to buy those products. Now, the other side of the coin is you look at consumer, we're going to generalize purchasing. Purchasing are normally made under, and I'll generalize it in two segments. Segment number one, a budgetary-driven system. This is a consumer who sits down and takes time to plan their shopping. They're going to look at what they're going to buy. They will look at the amount of money, and they will not go outside of that. Those are very disciplined people. They are great customers. These are customers who understands value. They are buying value. And when you and I deliver value to them and they recognize that value and it fits within their purchasing guidelines, you are building a customer for life. And your job and my job is to do what? Not just to have repeat purchases, not just to have a temporary sense of loyalty, but to have customer for life. And that's your Publix. Public wants the entire family to come back there right into second generation, third generation, fourth generation, and so forth. And so when is that plan being built? That plan is being built now. And then you have another group of customers, and we're all guilty by means of how we purchase, that is known as impulsive buyers. These are individuals who did not have any plan to spend any money on a given day, but they just decided, well, I'm going to go to the mall, or I'm going to visit the internet, or I'm going to look at a website, and the next thing you know, that there's a big offering there, 60% off. It grabs their emotion, it grabs their attention. They see it immediately as an opportunity to buy something at a big discount, and they buy the product. And so you will see a lot of companies that are selling consumer products do understand that emotional component of consumer, and they know that they can appeal. And so a lot of times it's not that they're cutting this price by 60%, but they've already priced that cut into their price point when they initially establish prices. How do we know that? You would see it at your retail store. Retail stores brings in merchandise based on seasonality. And of course, we have 4 seasons, and a season lasts for 12 weeks. And they know that individuals who are known as innovators, they're going to come in and they're going to grab those new products and they will pay high prices. But after time, you would see discount is going to, the prices will be discounted because that merchandise needs to be sold out within that 12 weeks period. They've already built profit into the very last group of customers who will come in, that is known as laggards. And that's a 13% of their target audience who may be spending 40%. On the price. So they're getting a 60% off, but there's still profit in that price. So this is science. These company knows that. And so they know this impulsive reaction, and they normally price products in order to capture those sales. So the third that I'll discuss with you is personal reasons. We make decisions based on personal reasons, and you can put that in several categories. But we will only discuss 3 today. Number 1, economics, which doesn't have to do with just the cheapest product out there, but value for money. So here's a question to you, okay? Question number 1, here's product A and here's product B. So they're similar products. Let's call them bottled water. Product A is 25 cents, but product B is 50 cents. Which one will you buy? Most likely, someone may say product A, 25 cents. All right, so let's say you buy product A, but your thirst is not quenched. Was your 25 cents well spent? Let's say you buy product B, 50 cents, and your thirst was quenched. Was your money well spent? That's value for money. We're not looking at, yes, we know we have to work with the money we have, and sometimes the terminology, we have to stretch every dollar. But normally this purchasing is done by what am I getting in return for what am I spending. So consumers normally spend 3 things that we have to take in consideration. They spend money that is quite valuable, and it is not, they don't have an unlimited amount of it. They spend time, and they spend effort. If you and I can understand those 3 investments that consumer makes, and then we can build that into our plans, and we can build that into our business relationship where they can experience value in all 3. And so we may look at quality of product, we may look at customer service, we may look at the total experience, and that is where the value comes in. So they're looking at value for investment in return. Secondly, it can be lifestyle. Lifestyle based on health, lifestyle based on fashion, lifestyle based on where they are at that point in time. It can be occupation, and so some folks are very, very strong into their occupation. They're very strong into what they do, and they choose to be single individuals. They don't get married, they don't have children, but they're there, and that's fine. That's a market there that we need to understand. And then, of course, you have folks who are very family oriented. They have a family, they're spending time on their family, and that's what comes first. Education, health of the family, insurance, financial security. So these are the planners now. These are individuals who are planned purchasers. They look at what they have to work with. They look at the responsibilities that they have in front of them, and they make decisions like that. The question is, do we have a lot of people living in this global business environment or the domestic environment that we're part of that are very family oriented and fit in all these classes? And that's where we define now your market in terms of target audience. Who are your target audience? Are your target audience individuals who buy for personal reasons? Are they individuals who buy for lifestyle reasons? Are they individuals who spend money because of family orientation? The more we understand, the better we are to develop the right strategy in order to deliver that value that your customer expects. And so here's another part that is often sometimes ignored. It's called post-purchase behavior. After the purchasing, then what? After the purchasing, then what is a question that you and I need to answer, because then what has a lot to do with our growth. Are we going to get this customer to come back? Will we get this customer to become a loyal customer? Will we get this customer to become a customer for life? And that's the big question, which has to do now with post-purchase behavior, post-purchase satisfaction, post-purchase dissonance, which is known as being dissatisfied, or some people use the word buyer's remorse. They are very unhappy with the decision they have made. So the question is this: when you and I are unhappy with a decision that we have made, especially when it cost us something, do we want to repeat that decision? Do we want to repeat that process? Only stupid people obviously will. And so if we're building our marketing growth plans on the fact that people forget, then we need to be a little bit more knowledgeable in understanding that people remembers dissatisfaction more than remember satisfaction, because satisfaction was promised, they're getting what they were promised. Dissatisfaction is a position of hurt, and they will always remember that, and they will always avoid that, and they will seek not to continue to be in a position of being hurt. So these are all information that you and I need to understand, that this is a holistic approach when you look at that consumer. From the connection to that consumer through information, right down now to the understanding of the categories of various customer and purchases, right to where they are in terms of their economics, their lifestyle. How will we position products? How will we build that relationship? How are we going to sustain a growth and continuous business relationship with this customer group? Remember, I mentioned earlier, we're building brands, we're building company brand, we're building product brand, we're building relationship brand, because brand stands for something that is quite important. It's identification. So here is something that you and I need to concern ourselves with: post-purchase action. So what happens if they're happy? You know, by nature, people like undivided attention. And so when they have a compelling story, they can be heroes for 5 minutes because they did, you know, there's a story now that they can tell to people to get their attention. And so it can be a great experience that they've had dealing with a supplier. And they can, you know, that's a good recommendation, and those recommendation turns out to be additional customers. And so your job and my job through these post-purchase action, the question is this: can you get your customer to be an extended arm, an unpaid extended arm of your marketing department? You don't have to pay them, you just have to deliver to your promise, make them happy, and they will now get out there and they will now speak to somebody that they know about a great experience they have with you, their friends, their family, individuals at a place of work. So if every customer can bring you one additional customer, what benefit is that to you? You're doubling your sales right off the bat. And you know, these are easy process, although ignored. And a lot of people don't look at it to see that through this person, I can reach 4 or 5 additional customers. That's a post-purchase action that we need to connect to. There's also the post-purchase action of not being satisfied. They can call and complain, or they can walk away. And that's is something that you and I don't want to ever happen. If for any reason they're unhappy, we need to stay in contact. We need to stay in communication. We need to ensure that we are delivering to our promise and we're getting those feedback. So post-purchase action, very important. You can benefit from it, or you can lose from it, or you can gain information from it, and we can improve our strategy from those post-purchase action. Okay, we're going to discuss the second segment of that marketing group of people that I mentioned to you, those 3: business, government, and consumer. We're going to deal with the business buyer. So who are business buyers? Business buyers are individuals who are part of that supply chain. They're either manufacturing people, they're distribution people, or they are within the transportation system that moves goods and services. You know, but if you're internet, you're moving service. But if you are a logistic company, you're moving goods, you're moving products. You're moving products from Procter & Gamble, or if you're a shipping company, you're moving products from international country to port of different countries. These are business buyers. Now, if we look at the numbers, business buyers by transaction, they do spend a lot of money. So let's take 2 companies that you guys know. Number 1, Walmart, and number 2, Target. 2 large mass merchandiser, okay? Walmart annual revenue is about $485 billion, almost $500 billion annually. And they're only working with a 3% margin, so you can look at the cost of merchandise. These are guys who spend $50–60 billion on a set of order. They're not going to buy hundreds of millions of dollars. They're going to buy in large volumes. So those are large purchases. right? And the same with Target. Target makes very large purchases because they have many stores across the country. And so they have to look at cost, they have to look at quality. And so, as I mentioned earlier to you, these folks make decision based on return on investment. Not who has the lowest price, because you can have the lowest price and you can be a dollar store and not have great quality and so forth. So return on investment decisions are based strictly on one component, that is the economic value of this business relationship. So it's all based on economics. That does not mean that if you are involved in the B2B segment of business that you should not build relationship. Why? Because people make decisions. People are relationship-oriented individuals. People decide who they will trust. People will decide who they will not trust. People will decide who they will do business again with. People will decide they will not do business again with. People will decide who keep their promises, and people will decide who does not keep their promises. Those are the human relations aspect of business as we look at this business relationship. But we should not ever forget that on the B2B business relationship, economics takes precedent. So I can have a great relationship with you, but if I don't bring economics to your purchasing, if you are the purchaser of that company, sadly, you will have to move to where you will get that economic value from. So business buyers can be broken down in several categories, and these categories are discussed in your book, and I would list some of them. Number one, industrial. Industrial are manufacturers. These are guys who make, it's like John Deere that makes farming equipments. They're the largest in the world. Or Caterpillar that makes large, earth moving equipments, heavy duty equipments. They're the largest in the world. Or Boeing that makes airplanes. They're sometimes the largest, sometimes the second largest. And of course you have consumer products, packaged good company like Procter & Gamble, Colgate-Palmolive, Nestle from Europe and so forth. And then you have clothing companies and so forth. So these are all can be categorized as manufacturer, but that some will fall in consumer manufacturing, some will fall in the category of industrial. And then you have another segment of that supply chain that does not deal with manufacturing, but they deal with now the movements of that goods and services. Those are known as wholesalers and resellers. Wholesalers are individuals who buy goods and services, or goods, in large quantities, and then they repackage it in smaller quantities, and then they sell them back to large wholesale retailers or small retailers, and so forth. And of course, you have institutions. Institutions is a different segment of that business, and some of them are for profit, some are not for profit. Those are your universities, those are your insurance company, those are your hospitals, those are institutions. And of course, government, which we will not discuss today. So those categories of buyers are all important, but in spite of the fact that they are different in the supply chain, yet they're guided by one very important component. That is the economics, return on investment, value for money. Why is that? Because they have to serve a group of customers below them where the revenue dollar is actually coming in. Now, some of these folks have two groups of customers that are very important. And one group is a business and the other group is a consumer. So here's an example of that customer. Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble is the largest consumer packaged goods company in the world, but they do not have retail stores. But you and I use their products quite frequently. We buy Tide, we buy breakfast cereal, we buy different products from Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble sells through retail stores, right? So they have two customers. They have, number one, the retailer. And I mentioned to you that what does the retailer want when he or she is doing business with Procter & Gamble? They want products that would help them to generate maximum revenue, meaning to say frequency of purchase, good quality of products, and good pricing where they can make money. They're in the business to make money. Then Procter & Gamble has another group of customers that is known as the consumer. These are the guys who use the products, use the economic value of the product in order for product to be replaced. If you don't have that group of customers, there's no need to replace products. And so they may go to the retail store and they consume the product. What do they want from that product? They want good consumption satisfaction. They want affordability of pricing. So Procter & Gamble now has to think in terms of that retailer, what they want, in terms of that consumer, what they want, and ensure that both group of customers are happy, or else they're not going to be satisfied, and their business will have difficulties. So if you take these two groups of customers that we're discussing and ask the question, which is the most important group of customers for any economy across the world, any country, any economy, or the global economy as a whole? Is it business? Is it consumer? Now we can have a very healthy debate and say, okay, without the business, we're not going to have products come into the consumer. But then on the other side of the coin, without the consumer, the business will not exist. There's an economic terminology that is known as demand derived, which means that demand is coming from someplace. And it means that a business really cannot stand on its own and experience success without demand coming from the consumer. So if you don't have a very healthy economy where consumers are able to make money and have a reasonable good level of confidence that they have enough to take care of themselves and their family and a little bit extra to do other things, then we will have an economy that is going to crumble. So let's take entertainment, whether it's movies, whether it's dinner out or sports bar or whatever. Entertainment is a business. What happens if a consumer does not have a little bit of an extra penny to spend there? That business is going to go down, and we have a lot of unemployed people. So that's demand derived. They depend on that consumer. So let's take your airlines, and let's take Boeing. Let's take Delta Airlines, and let's take Boeing. Right? Boeing makes the plane, Delta buys the plane. Well, what happened if people decided, well, I'm not going to use air as much as I did. I'll use the train, or I'm going to just drive my car. Then what happened with passenger? Air passenger declines. Is there a need to buy more airplanes? Obviously, no. Is there a need to manufacture more airplanes? Obviously, no. So how about the individual who supplied the raw material to Boeing? And so that's the demand derived component. So let's take this consumer market specifically in the United States. The United States is considered to be the largest consumer market in the world. We consume 20% of goods and services that is produced across the world, and that's how large we are. By comparison to the business, 70% of contribution to the gross domestic product of the United States, it is consumer purchase. The other 20%, it is government and it's business. And so in every country, your consumer is extremely important. That's why it's extremely important that we have healthy economies. We have knowledge-based people. We have people who are getting jobs and making good money to able to support and supplement the continuous growth of economy. So by definition, that consumer market is your number one most important market. Every other market depends on that market. Every other segment of that supply chain is dependent on that consumer market. So back again to business consumer. I did mention to you there now is in that supply segment that takes care of consumer. So what does consumer wants? Do you think consumer wants good price? Price is always a factor for consideration. Do you think consumer wants good quality products? Good quality products is always a point of consideration. Do you think they want good customer service? Good customer service is always a point of consideration. But how much are they willing to pay? And the answer is, I want all of that, and I do not want to pay a whole lot. And so now what should business do? Is there logics with that statement? Business has to respond. And what is the respond? Respond is I have to meet them somewhere, either halfway or very close to where they are, or else I'm not going to be able to sell. And so business now have to make decisions, again, on the return on investment. And so the acquisitions of merchandise that they will bring in, whether it's raw material to manufacture, whether it's negotiating with a transportation company, air freight or sea freight or rail or truck, or whether it's warehousing, or whether it's packaging, or whether it's whether we're dealing with cardboard boxes of that sort. Company has to look at every dollar that they spend. And so a lot of times what they will do, if they're large enough, they will have what is known as a professional buying center. They will use only professional people. And so let's take a company that you guys know, Macy's, right? Macy's has various divisions. They have a division for children, children's clothing. They have a division for males, male clothing, and for female. But then you can break those divisions up and you can look at shoes and you can look at business clothes and you can look at casual clothes and so forth. And so you have buyers who are knowledgeable in those product offering, and they normally buy in large quantities. So why do they have professional buyers? They have professional buyers because now they are in the business to make money. Simple as that. And so professional buyers are individuals who just doesn't spend money only, but they are very, very knowledgeable in the demand side, what consumer want, and the supply side, who has the best product, and they're great at negotiation because they have a job that is being their performances sometimes will be evaluated on the basis of how well did you work for Macy's to help Macy's to make sales and to make more money. So their job is they are going to negotiate hard. They want the best quality products. They want the greatest amount, the best terms of payment, and they want to pay the least amount of money. These are great negotiators. And so that's the reason why you will see a lot of companies use professional buying centers, because they're looking for their own personal advantage. And so what are some of those things, methodology that they are actually using? We know they use a lot of negotiation. The other thing that they use is a lot of current-based knowledge. They're members of various organizations, meaning to say organization through which they get information in order to determine who are the best suppliers, who are the individuals that are willing to work with them, and so forth. So they're very, very knowledgeable in business. And finally, a lot of times they use request for proposal, and they will send it out to you. They're not going to meet you face to face, and you have to submit a proposal. And proposals are going to come from many different suppliers. Question is, how are we going to be the choice supplier? So as you look into your book, there are 2 chapters that covers the consumer market and the business market individually. And the reason why, because that's the heart of your economy across the world and in every country and in every industry. So whether you are in luxury products, whether you are an internet-based company, whether you are a social networking company, revenue dollars is the key to business success and the continuation of a business. And so marketing now fits in all of that. And so you and I have to decide, is it going to be consumer that we serve? Is it going to be business that we serve? And how are we going to able to build our business? We have to build our business by understanding both groups of customers, the interaction, the relationship, and also where they are in their purchasing guidelines, where they are in their methodology of purchasing, and how are we going to build this relationship that has durability and has success. So spend some time in your book. I want you to go through the consumer market, study it very carefully, understand it very carefully, and then look at the business market, and then look to see the combined relationship. Although independent, they are different, yet they are combined and integrated together. Thank you, and my very best and continued success to all of you as you move forward with this course.